No, Tom spoke to their council and said there's just the few items that he wanted.
Good evening. It is 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. I'd like to call to order the Town of Sutton Board of Selectmen's meeting, and we would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As always, we'll start with public forum. Public forum is limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate individuals' rights. Is there anyone here for public forum? Seeing no one. Our first agenda item then is Board of Selectmen minutes from October 1st, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from our October 1st, 2019 meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Next up, we have a public hearing, a poll hearing. So I'd like to call the public hearing into session and invite the clerk to read the notice.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As posted in the September 26, 2019 Millbury Sutton Chronicle, public hearing notice. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th, 2019, in the Sutton Town Hall upon petition from National Grid for permission to install one SO pole on Johnson Road, beginning at a point approximately 1,425 feet north of the center line of the intersection of Mendon Road and continuing approximately 15 feet in an easterly direction. National Grid to install a 35C2 stub pole to support a P8 in preparation. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just lost my, gotta love technology. Thank you. I lost the screenshot. To support a P8 in preparation of removing 2 tree guys. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as the petitioner desires for distributing purposes. Plan file here within marked number 2896610.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from National Grid? Come on up. Jim, do you want to say anything about it or let?
No,
let
it's
it
just,
go?
I believe this was a highway request because one of the guys was in a tree that needed to be removed, and that was, I think, Matt Stencil from our highway department contacted National Grid.
Great. Can you tell us your name briefly?
Jay Lucier.
And anything you want to tell us about it?
No, we're just trying to remove guy wires that are in a dead tree that they're trying to take down.
Okay. Jesse?
I really don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman, considering the fact that it was a request from Highway Department and Police and Fire signed off on it.
Thank you. Wendy?
I have no questions or concerns.
Jonathan?
No questions, all set?
No questions. I feel like we should ask you something since you came all the way down. But I don't really have any questions, so.
How's traffic on the highway?
Back roads for me.
All right, then. With that, we need to take a vote to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. The public hearing is closed, and now we need to take hear the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve poll hearing number 289-66010 from National Grid as advertised in the September 26, 2019 Millbury Sutton Chronicle.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. I'm sorry we had to put you through all that.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Next up on the agenda is a free cash update. Jim?
Tim,
If you'd like to come join us.
Tim Harrison's going to join us. Just a little bit of background on the free cash. I had actually started this as an update to the board, and I wrote it out on my update and then thought about it, and there was a lot of different pieces to this that I wanted to talk in depth on, and that's why I made it an agenda item. And and Tim is here to help us through this. There are three main reasons why the free cash number came in. The free cash number came in at $2,877,069. That it got a little bit of a head start because we rolled forward from 2018, $1,079,466. So it really gave, a real jump start to the free cash. That was free cash that went unexpended. We took care of snow and ice, we took care of deficits at year end, and that was the money left over. After investing in the biggest capital plan that we've had in a number of years, at least 10 years, of a number of improvements, and then, the capital stabilization fund was used to pave Central Turnpike and a few other issues. So the local receipts are made up of really three big main items, and that is local receipts in excess of the budget, tax revenues in excess of the budget, and expenditures less than the budget. So departments turning back expenses. That all comes out as free cash. So you have a chart, I think it's in your packet. Tim, do you want to walk through this for the board, or?
Sure. So the top of the page, I just gave you the main categories of what generated the free cash in addition to the $1 million we carried over. So we ended up with $1,816,744 of new free cash. The biggest items, as Jim alluded to, is taxes greater than budgeted, and that happens a couple different ways. We had some rollback taxes, land coming out of chapter, tax title collections, so properties that were in arrears that the treasurer and collector have put a lien on their property. We had some good collections, $183,000. And then real estate taxes themselves were greater than budget, and the way that happens is we collect some old receivables that were not in tax title, and when the tax revenue budget is figured, it's the levy limit, and then from there we subtract out an allowance for abatements and exemptions. And we typically budget more in that account than the historic 5-year average, which is required by DOR. So if we end up collecting 100% of our taxes, for example, and not hit the abatement and exemption number, then we end up with collections greater than budget. On the local receipts, the biggest item that we generally exceed budget on is motor vehicle excise taxes. We always budget conservatively, not always sure what the economy is doing, not always sure when people are going to buy new cars. So we're always conservative, and historically we've come in better than budgeted. DOR is very straightforward when they tell us budget conservatively for things in your local receipts. We had a banner year in inspection services, 2 years in a row. Again, it's one of those things where we're conservative. I look at historical numbers and budget accordingly. And if we have some commercial activity going on, we have some housing activity, our inspectional services will exceed budget. A big one this year was interest income. We borrowed the $8.7 million for the police station before we even broke ground. It got a slow start. It was stalled a little bit during the wintertime. We had that $8.7 million, a good chunk of it sitting in the bank all year, and our former treasurer did a good job of investing that wherever we could, playing one bank against another, inching up those interest rates, and got a good return on it. By the time the police station opened up and the officers moved in, we'd already made our first payment. So right now we only have 19 payments left. and they just got in the building recently. And then it's just a whole bunch of other little things. And then on the expense side, we had some good turnbacks, biggest one being health insurance, almost $225,000. Jim and I knew that a year ago when we started the 2020 budget season. I think our increase was 6%,
6%.
and we only budgeted about 2% because we knew we had 200,000 extra in there, and that came from the plan redesigns.
Yep.
So we had more,
Adopting HSAs and deductibles on one plan.
and more people opting out to take their spouse's insurance instead of our plan. So that all added up to about 225,000. There were a few article turnbacks. We had the boiler. There was a few other ones, but it was just a lot of little stuff, and it adds up. So we had I think we're doing a good job of budgeting conservatively and spending accordingly. So we end up with some turnbacks. So we end up with $2.8 million in free cash this year.
You know, keep in mind that it did have $1 million head start from the previous fiscal year. And so that's the healthiest we've ever started a free cash situation. In the past, we've spent free cash close to down, and this was a big year where we forwarded $1 million into this fiscal year.
And part of what's been contributing to this, it's not just a 1 or 2, it's really been a 3 years where we've had some good new growth that has come in, and we've taken that new growth and we've revoted the budget, reducing our use of free cash in, say, the capital article or some other articles, and using the new growth instead. So that ends up freeing up free cash. So this was the third year in a row that we've done that. Or the third year is coming up this fall. And again, we vote to amend the May vote by 125,000, using new growth, freeing up the free cash.
Tell us what happens if you don't do that.
All right. So I think it's easier to show you an example.
Thank you.
I try to keep it simple, not because I know you're all more than intelligent enough to understand it, but just trying to keep, there's so many variables, I just want to keep it simple with a simple example. So first, to answer your initial question, if we don't budget for it in the first year, so let's just take this year, for example, coming up. We anticipate new growth is going to be about 150,000 more than what we budgeted. We started with 150, it's going to come in a little over 300. So if we don't use it, in 2020, we lose it. It's there for 2021, it's in our base, we'll always have it in our base, but that initial year, if we don't use it, we lose it. So, as an example, so I have an original 2020 budget. It's showing you roughly $1 million of revenue sources. And then we spent it's $1,050,000, so we have a balanced budget. The net is 0. Then we get our new growth certified, and lo and behold, we have an extra 125,000 in new growth. So looking in the amended 2020 column, I added that in there, and now our revenue side is $1,175,000. So in order to, again, get the budget to 0, we revote the capital article, and we use that 125,000 to replace the free cash. So again, we have a balanced budget. 2021 comes along, and the tax revenue, forgetting about 2.5% increase, forgetting about any other adjustments, the first number, the $1,125,000, is made up of tax revenue of $850,000, estimated new growth of $150,000, and the final new growth of $125,000. So that's the base that we start with. Again, we estimate new growth, and we have local receipts. So I'm just saying in this example, we have $1,325,000 to spend, and that's going to offset our increases in wages and expenses, health insurance, et cetera. If we didn't have, if we had used the 125,000 in my amended budget column for recurring expenditures, then we wouldn't have that available to spend for 2021. So Jim and I have taken a position that we have a balanced budget in May. Departments are all satisfied they can live with their budget. There's no reason to add money to the expense budget as a recurring item. So we push that revenue availability to the next year. So that helps offset our increases in our fixed costs the next year, which are contractual salary increases, health insurance going up 6-8%, county retirement going up 10%. You know, there's things that, if you add up all the things that we cannot control that are gonna go up, it exceeds the 2.5 increase plus new growth of an average of 150. So the way we're able to maintain a balanced budget is by being conservative and rolling that new growth forward each year. We've been doing this now for about 3 years.
Mr. Chairman?
Did I lose?
Could I ask one
Everybody.
quick question on that? Just
Go right ahead.
Tim, could you just explain why why we would lose the new growth and why if we don't use it, why doesn't it just drop into free cash?
The tax recap itself has to be balanced also, just like our budget.
Yep.
So the tax recap starts off with a levy limit. It's calculated based on prior year's tax plus 2.5%,
Yep.
plus any voted articles for a 2.5 override, debt exclusions, and new growth. So that revenue number flows to page 1. Then from there, you add other revenue sources, state aid, local receipts, come up with a total revenue potential budget for the town. And then that number is compared to what it was voted at town meetings for expenditures. And if your expenditures are less than what your maximum revenue budget is, then you have an unbalanced recap. And the only way to get it to balance is to reduce your revenues. So if you don't, and the place you'd end up reducing your revenues would be on the tax levy. So you'd have an excess levy capacity that you wouldn't use. It's there in the next year's computation, because that's your starting point each year. But in this initial year, you would lose that revenue. So it's either, so you have two choices. You spend it on one-time expenditures, which is what we do, or you increase your operating budget, and that's a recurring expense, and then the next year or 2 years later, you don't have that money. Now you have layoffs, or you're cutting services again. So you end up going like this, you know, up and down, and we don't want to do that. We want to maintain our services, go up as needed contractually, things that are not in our control. Blackstone Valley Vocational, we can't control that. So we control what we can.
I just wanted to kind of clarify that for people that are watching as to why we lose the new growth if we don't use it.
It's
So-
only in the first year.
Right, yes, it does carry forward, and then it's subject
It's
to
in the
2.5.
base, it'll always be there, and there'll be a 2.5% increase every year on that going forward, but it's that first year. And you hate to, when we, you know, we've got such tight budgets, you hate to leave any revenue on the table.
But I still have a question on that, because the new growth is really an actual tax levy to somebody who's built something. And they're still gonna pay that no matter what, right? We're still able to levy that tax to the property owner.
Well, it's levied across the entire town. So if your maximum levy capacity is $1 million to split amongst everybody in town, but
So
we
it
decide
essentially
we're only
changes the
gonna,
tax rate.
but if we don't tax to the levy limit, if we only taxed 875,000 instead of the $1 million, that 875 is split among everybody.
So it really lowers the tax rate for that given year?
Right.
Okay.
And there are some wealthy
Okay.
communities that actually will leave, you know, levy capacity on the table to purposely keep their tax rate down.
Okay.
We don't have that luxury.
Sure. Questions?
Well, yeah, on that point, I think, the expression that was used back when I was on the school committee was the spending cliff. If you're constantly trying to use one-time monies for reoccurring costs, what's gonna end up happening to your point, the moment it's not there, you're gonna have to balance the budget through cuts. And I think we saw that going back 8, 9 years ago, when in 3 or 4 years, we ended up cutting off 23 full-time employees through the school system, just because we saw that dip, and that was the only way to balance the budget. So I think this is fantastic. Definitely appreciate the explanation, Tim. This was just wonderful. And to the community, I would like to reiterate something that Tim mentioned earlier, is that this was a very atypical year. This was just one of those years that the stars aligned. And to your point, we have a lot of new growth in town. One of the biggest things that came through that I know we talked about a couple of years ago was all of the high-tension wires that went through, the big steel ones a few years back. That was a huge new growth
$1
year.
million.
Plus, we have Market 32, we have Lord and Propane, we have Prime Metals going in. So there's all these other things that are gonna be keeping the good times going, so to speak. But I definitely appreciate your caution, because we don't wanna think that it's raining money. Because ultimately, if we spend at that point, we're gonna set us up for hard times to come, and I think that would definitely be detrimental to the well-being of the taxpayers in general.
Yeah, later on this fall, I will be updating the historical numbers for 19 and then redoing my projections for 20 through 25, with plugging in the new growth number, and again, we'll see where that cliff
Right.
comes out.
Because we know it's coming.
Exactly.
We know it's
we
coming,
do.
so.
But I think the way we're working, that cliff is pushed out further now.
Right.
So that's the positive.
And I appreciate both of your efforts in this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the explanation. It was very, very helpful. I just have one question. Is there any calculation that we can use to predict the Chapter 90 deficit year by year? I know that's a painful question to ask, but
That's a one-time happening. It's all a matter of timing. Department of Revenue allows you to recognize a receivable up to 90 days after year end. There was just the timing of the way things happened that the Chapter 90 actually, as of June 30, had a deficit of closer to 500,000, of which we received about 337,000 around the first week of August.
to
So
offset.
I was able to use that as a revenue source to bring that down, and it just left the 157,000. Those reimbursement requests have gone in already. We should be getting that money anytime. So it's a timing issue. And it's one reason why we always vote in town meeting to authorize the treasurer to allow them to borrow in anticipation. We could have borrowed this money by June 30, but my personal feeling was I didn't need the free cash.
Right.
We were okay, so this will fall back into free cash next year.
Right.
We don't lose that, it's a subtraction, we get it back again.
Okay, fair enough.
So we already start 157,000
Ahead.
ahead for next year.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that as well. Thank you both, too, for your concerted efforts with respect to the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you. It was very helpful to, being, 1 year into the board at this point, it was helpful to get a deeper explanation on free cash. I think one of the questions that comes to me is more or less just trying to put myself in other people's shoes who are hearing this and trying to understand it. I mean, I've been closer to this, I'm starting to learn it, but one of the questions I have is, we use the term like the good times are rolling right now, and we're trying to push out the cliff. At what point would we consider like keeping someone on the table to lower the tax rate? Like if we kept getting new businesses coming in, I'm just thinking on behalf of what other people are thinking, like, oh, they're washing cash and,
Well,
yeah, I know we're not, but I'm just saying.
We're
like,
not,
I know, but
'cause
when people
Jim-
hear that, they're gonna be wondering, and I'm just trying to make sure that we
I
answer
have
those questions so people aren't.
two answers to that question. First one is Jim and I already have a plan on on how we're spending down this free cash, and based on this plan, we're looking at roughly 800,000 that will roll forward to 2022. So we've already got a big spend down. All things that are needed, you know, capital plan, there's a few other things anticipated. We can always, you know, anticipate a couple 100,000 in snow and ice. There's things that we need it for. Trying to go back to your question. Oh. So, I mean, I would love to see the day where 2.5%, Prop 2.5 increase on our levy limit plus new growth would just exceed the increase from Blackstone Valley, Worcester County retirement, and health insurance increases. Never mind salary increases. The day we can keep up with those, then we might talk about looking at the tax rate. But I don't see right now, unless there's massive commercial growth, I don't see if we're ever gonna get to that point.
Right.
That's why we keep having to look at ways to cut costs. We keep looking at changing our health insurance plan, putting more burden on the employees. I mean, that's not, I mean, if we're at a point where we have excess capacity, I would like, you know, one thing you could do is maybe loosen the health insurance a little bit and take less burden off the employees. Maybe add a staff person here or there that when you've got departments that are running very lean, school department running lean, I just don't see where we can generate enough tax revenue to ever get to a point where you suggested that
Yeah.
we'd have excess levy.
No, I agree. I think it's a helpful explanation. Especially where we're predominantly, tax levies come in from homes versus, mostly from homes and very few from businesses. So I think we're a long ways away from that. But I just want people to understand the complexities of this, and that there's a lot of things to cover here, and we're being very fiscally prudent to make sure that we're keeping that cliff out as far as possible, and always anticipating what could come beyond that even. So
I mean, there's so much work done behind the scenes by the planning director and the planning board, you know, trying to attract new businesses and trying to get the growth and identify areas that commercial growth could occur. I mean, we've got this, a four-town possible agreement of zoning that's coming up, and that's, something like that.
Multi-town mixed commerce.
I mean, those things like that are critical to get to a point where we can stabilize or get closer to stabilizing, revenues equaling our fixed expenses.
and we only have so much land available to us to even develop in a
Right.
commercial sense, and even there's constraints because of water and sewer and things like
Right.
that. So what we do develop, what is available to develop, we need to be really thinking about that, because it's really
Yeah,
helps
we're not
offset.
in right now, we're not in an extra cash position. We're trying to offset a 2.5 override
Right.
at some point down the line, and/or massive cuts in staff and services in town. So, we've done well over the last 10, 15 years, but, expenses continue to grow, and healthcare and these big budget items continue to put additional burden on our budget.
All right, thank you very much, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in 100% agreement with the approach you're taking on this. I think if you look at just the components of the increase in revenues being excise taxes, inspection services, both of which are indicative of a really strong economy, so that if we start to budget recurring expenses with that, I think that's a mistake. And the bank interest of $140,000, which I wasn't aware where that came from, but you can't budget a
No,
recurring.
that came mostly
thing like
from
that,
the borrowing, investing the borrowing.
Right.
And that's all spent.
Yeah,
so
so I'm in.
It's gonna be a huge decrease in interest income.
The only thought I would have on the whole thing is, I know that, the OPEB funding is based on 10% of free cash.
Yeah.
And to the extent we roll free cash forward, we're taking another 10% on that every year. And was that the original intent of the board back then? Or is it just the incremental increase in the free cash?
My understanding, it was 10% of free cash. Not, you know, if we roll forward 1.1, then you get 100, you know, you get
You get it twice.
$10,000, you know,
Right,
so.
yeah.
It is one strategy to fund OPEB, which is.
I just
real
didn't know
cost.
what the original intent was back.
That
when
was
voted
it,
on
pure and
It's-
simple,
it's-
10% of
it's-
free cash.
Right, and it's a policy, so it's not cast in stone, so, you know, Jim and I often talk about, well, you know, what's the minimum that we wanna roll forward? We'll get to a point, how low is as low as we wanna go?
Yep.
And if we get to that point, let's say it's 800,000. We may not wanna be putting 10% of 800,000 into the OPEB every year, because if we're already at our minimum, we don't wanna spend it down
Right.
on something that, I wanna say it's elective, but, I mean, it is a true liability, but we have to make sure we take care of our services and operating budget first before we fund OPEB.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about why you want to have a targeted minimum amount to carry forward, to roll forward every year.
There's always something that may come up that's unexpected that we're gonna need money for. We can't predict snow and ice. You know, you can try to listen to the Farmer's Almanac, but they're never right. I mean, the weatherman can't even get the weather right day to day, never mind forecast the winter. You know, you can have something that's gonna break down, that, you know, a boiler goes, you know, something happens. You've gotta have money to fall back on. You wouldn't spend all of the money in your own savings account. You need a few months' worth of salary to get you through in case you run into some problems. It's the same with us. I don't know what that magic number is, but we kick around 800,000 to $1 million as being as low as we wanna go if we can.
And if you look at this number this year, and I know you said you've got plans for it, and that's fine, but if you were in a different position and you didn't have a specific place to put it in a given year, would you feel bad about rolling forward $1.5 million or $2 million if that was your thing? If that's where your numbers came out?
I mean, I don't foresee that happening. If we're going to keep up with our capital needs in town, our capital needs far exceed the amount of money that we have. So we have to, you know, do a capital plan where we cut out a lot of capital requests from department heads. So that's one issue. The other is, I think a healthy unreserved cash balance helps us with rating agencies. I think that's a positive that they look to, they comment on. Same with our auditors, Melanson and Heath, they comment on our unreserved cash balance. And it reflects a healthy, stable financial community.
So, you know, what I've taken from all the conversation that's gone on, we budget conservatively, we do that, you know, purposefully because we wouldn't want it any other way. The last few years, it seems like we've had a number of positive sort of one-time things that have generated maybe a larger than typical free cash amount, kind of year over year. And that, as you have presented to us in the past, we have this potential for a fiscal cliff coming. And so really what we're trying to do is be conservative and be prepared for that as best we can. So I think Jonathan was saying, maybe we're all saying, that to the community at large, if this seems like a big number, really it's a protection against, you know, what happens if there's a recession in the future, and then we know a lot of the numbers that we see on the revenue side go way down. And so I think it's appropriate to ask the questions, but I have a sense amongst pretty much everybody sitting here that this is where we would like to see the town kind of prepped for tougher days in the future. Sound about right?
That's a
Fair enough.
fair summary.
All right. That's all I have. Anybody else? Tim, thank you very much. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
just having that prepared. Ask a
was very
question, get a
smooth.
worksheet. It will.
Love Excel.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. All right, next up is a transfer station update. Jim, you want wanna start?
Yeah, sure. I've got a PowerPoint that we've got prepared. We've got
Matt, you wanna come up?
So is Dave gonna make it tonight, or no?
No, I don't think so.
No. Tuesday night's actually our long night down at the transfer station, as most of you know, so Dave's had a very long day, so. You know, I'll go through the presentation in a minute, but the cover letter kind of explains part of why we're doing this. I do this typically every year, a transfer station update, to just give you an idea of how things are running down at the transfer station. Right now, this year, at year end, we were $6,000 to the positive. Last year, we were $1,000 to the positive. We were cutting it pretty close. You know, we really try to hold off on sticker fee increases. I think it's every 7 years we face a sticker fee increase. The transfer station opened in 2006, give or take. 2013, we raised the sticker fee, and in 2020, we're looking to raise the sticker fee again by $10. And that's really the cost of operation, to haul the trash away, to deal with the recycling, the cost of both the hauling and the cost to haul and the cost for the recycling. All of these costs go up, as well as wages, and the tipping fee at the Wheelabrator goes up on an annual basis. So those costs continue to go up, and every 7 years, give or take, we need a rate increase to keep up with those expenses. I'll go through this presentation quickly. Most of you, right now, you can purchase a sticker at Town Hall for $40, or down at the transfer station itself. $1.25 for a small, $2.50 for a large. This is an estimate cost to an average family with a $40 sticker fee, and 1.5 large bags, so it's really one large bag and one small bag a week. Those are costs that we've gotten off of contacts with Waste Management, one company. There are other companies that provide different costs, different circumstances. But that's generally the trend that we're seeing. And again, the board is well aware that all the funds raised within the transfer station need to support the transfer station. They can't take any general fund revenues to support the transfer station. So revenues must equal expenses. Sticker fee, the revenues versus expenses over the last few years. You see back in 2016, we had a healthy number. 2017 and through 2019, it's been rather tight. The 2019 could have been a little bit less, but we did something there that last minute. So it is cutting it close. The history, again, similar. 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013, we saw a deficit, and then we raised the sticker fee and end of 13 into 14, and the rate went up to $18,000. So again, it's dealing with you set the high sticker fee, and it sustains for a period of time, then it starts to drop off. At this point in 2013, went into a deficit. 2014, we raised the sticker fee, so then it went up. Now it's sloping down again over the last couple years. So Dave, the transfer station operator, has really focused on what fees can we increase to support the transfer station. And he's recommended adding a $2 fee for every pallet. People used to bring pallets down to the transfer station where they store pellets on the pallets. So these pallets were accumulating. You know, at first, people would drop them off and, you know, people would want them for whatever kind of projects they were doing with the pallets. As soon as word got out, we got a ton of pallets and really nothing to do with them, and there was a cost to throw them in the trash or get rid of them. It wasn't easily, there's not a recyclable item. So he would like to add a $2 fee for every pallet. Full-size mattress or box springs goes up to $15. I think the current rate is $10. You put one of those in the large disposal container where the trash goes. There's really no other alternative for that. Matt, you want to talk about the rest of these items?
Yeah, so the mattresses and box springs, they don't have a ton of weight, but they take up a lot of space. And we pay by the dumpster. We pay, each time the dumpster gets hauled is $130. You know, when it gets dumped, you know, we get paid by, you know, we pay by weight. So those things, if you figure it out to be how many trash bags it would be, it's, you know, it's certainly $15 is still a pretty good deal. The toilets we don't really see too many of, but they're a weight issue too. And Wheelabrator really doesn't want them because it's not a burnable. The other mattresses, the same thing. The couches, the same thing. They take up a lot of room. Dave tries to get as many of those things in the compactors as he can because they also soak up water. We have an open top that we can throw things in, like furniture. Not, you know, compact is more for the bags and the regular trash. But when stuff goes in the open top only goes once a month or whatever, and then sits there and collects rain and snow. And so Dave tries to get the mattresses and the couches, or at least some of the parts of them, into the compactor so that it doesn't soak up more, you know, more weight. But that's still a bargain, you know. I think we did do some comparing with other transfer stations, and it's, you know, it's still right in the range or on the low end. The TVs and computer monitors have been going up. We have a small dumpster that they give us, and we fill it. And doesn't matter how many TVs are in it. We usually fit about 100, maybe 90 to 100. Depends, all different size TVs and monitors. And 6 years ago, it was like $650. Last time I got the bill, I think it was $1,375. We've tried many times to find different outlets for the TVs, and nobody wants them. Especially now that the market has changed with what China would take. That there's some stuff in there that can't be thrown away, and it's not easily retrieved. You know, either the recyclable materials or the hazardous materials are not easily retrieved. So it's not a cheap thing to get rid of. And we were on the low end for all the TVs. And that's a space issue, so we're paid by the space. We get this dumpster. It has a cover on it. It's a box, essentially, but it hooks up to their truck, and they drop us an empty one. And that space we get, like say, sometimes it's 90, sometimes it might be 110 TVs. So we collect a different amount, but right now we're collecting about, you know, $1,400, about what it's costing us. A few years ago, we were collecting, you know, a few $100s more than what it cost us to, you know, to fill it. So this will hopefully make up that gap, and we'll be a little bit ahead of it. And Dave does count the TVs, and he does an excellent job stacking them, you know, to try to take advantage of that space in the dumpster. Because the more TVs we fit in there, then, you know, the cheaper it is. But that's just an expensive item that's not going anywhere. We've been getting for a while the flat ones too, and you know, a lot of those have to go in there as well. The new style, I'm saying, but we still get tons of the old style ones. People still have those big ones, and they bring in sometimes some of the ones like furniture, you know, piece of furniture. So they're getting a bargain at $30 or $35 for some of those big TVs. But all this stuff's really just been kind of a long time coming. It's based on what we're paying to get rid of the stuff, basically.
You know, part of the goal has always been to create a situation where there's enough money in retained earnings through the transfer station to support upgrade of the transfer station. You know, it's sort of like a free cash is for the town budget for capital items. It's the one source of revenue. Again, if all expenses revenues and expenses must equal out, the retained earnings is a valuable source to replace equipment, replace dumpsters, replace power motors. You know, right now, Dave's doing a lot of upgrades. Dave Arsenal's doing a number of upgrades to the transfer station building, or hut, if you will, replacing the windows, replace the roof, replacing some of the walkways out to some of the recycling areas. So, you know, that the retained earnings allows us to have the ability to appropriate at a town meeting funds for new compactors and new motors, et cetera. So that's really the goal, is to create a healthy retained earnings, yet at the same time balancing that with the cost to the consumer. So that's it. You know, recycling, this is kind of a variable number. We're done tracking the recycling number, because it's such a, the state doesn't even track recycling numbers at this point. It's a number that can be manipulated in so many different ways. If we counted, let's say, yard waste in our recycling, we get a ton of yard waste on an annual basis that we compost and make available to residents. But if, you know, all of that is incorporated into the recycling, we're recycling at a much greater rate than 60%. But, you know, as of now, the state no longer tracks recycling rates, so it seems kind of a non-issue to follow it. But we are recycling at a very attractive rate if you look at all the vehicles coming down to the recycling area. Sticker sales, we're doing very well. You can see 2013, we raised it by $10, raised another $11,000. In 18, we received $44,700. If we increase it in 19 by $10, it'll probably be $54,000, give or take. But not only, you can see the number of customers have actually increased, because a $10 increase would be $10,000. In 13 to 14, we grew the additional customers at the same time. So more people are using the transfer station overall, and we've seen a big jump. That should be FY19. I'm sorry, you get two 18s there, but FY19 was a $2,000 increase, and that's $30, $40 per sticker, additional people participating. The rigid plastics are kind of a mixed blessing. You want to talk about that at all?
Well, the rigid plastics are a different type of plastic. Our other plastics are called the soft plastics, the butter containers and the milk jugs and things like that. These plastics, like the chairs and like recycling bins and 5-gallon buckets, things like that, are recyclable, but in the past they weren't recyclable under our system. And where we send our stuff, it wasn't recyclable, which is true for a lot of things. I mean, manufacturers like to put that recycling symbol on it. That doesn't mean you can bring it to the Sutton transfer station and recycle it, because we don't necessarily have an outlet for it. The state was pushing this, so they gave us the free dumpster, to try it. And what we're doing is basically just trying to help our customers with this, because a lot of those items before would have been pay items, like that, that plastic chair. Dave would have probably charged, $5 or something for that, because it would have went in the trash, it would have taken up space, it would have added weight to the dumpster. So if they're recycling through this, the customer doesn't pay for it. But it cost us more than it cost us to get rid of the trash, to get rid of this dumpster, to get rid of this. If you count it out per ton, there's not even barely a ton in there when it goes out, but it's $85 a ton. The trash right now is like $70 a ton. So we are recycling it, and we try to do the right thing for the environment and try to help the customer. At the same time, we're taking a little bit of a hit on it. To make up for that, they gave us a $7,000 dumpster, so we get to keep that whether the program continues or not. And that wouldn't be our decision necessarily to end the program. It would be if we didn't have an outlet for it anymore. And right now we have an outlet for it, even though we do pay, to dump it. Not a huge amount. I mean, huge amount per ton, but not a huge amount per dumpster. And it only goes out 4 or 5 times maybe in the year. But it's just something we try to add a little bit of value for the sticker holders, basically.
Those would have normally been special permits that Dave would collect, and now we're providing additional service at, a loss to the transfer station financially. So we're doing okay. We do try to provide other options. There is, what is it, brush chipping coming up in a
This
couple
coming
weeks.
Saturday, what we'll do is we'll park the truck and the chipper, and a couple of highway guys will be there, and, you know, it's already been announced and everything, and we get full customers. The big truck, we usually fill like 1.5 times with chips, so, and it's only from 8 till noon. So we don't have an option for brush during the year, so we kind of created an option. So a couple times a year, we'll do one in like May, one in October. People can do some yard work, cut up a bunch of brush, bring it down, and our guys will run it right through the chipper. Otherwise, we can't take brush with our composting, just leaves and grass and things, you know, things that'll compost. So we added that just to kind of help the people out. We try to add more value to the sticker, which is the same as the composting. We pay for the screening of the compost every 4 years or 3 or 4 years. They run it through a screener, and out comes, you know, screen compost, and, you know, the people like it. It's free, so they take it by the, you know, bucket load, or they shovel it in their car, however you can get it home, and, you know, use it for your flowers, a garden, a lawn, or whatever. And the firewood, the same thing. When it's available, we have wood. We'll gladly give it away, and we will be milling hopefully Thursday as planned, Central Turnpike, so we'll have more of that available. And people take that too. When we have these jobs that, you know, they mill the road and they take the millings, we'll take as much as we can, leave it at the transfer station. We don't load people's trucks. I'll, you know, let them deliver it with a, you know, a construction vehicle. It's just whatever you can shovel in your trunk or your bucket or your pickup truck. You know, if you have a sticker, you can take some of the materials to fill some holes in your driveway or whatever.
Yeah, so, again, this is, you know, situation where we feel that we need to bring it to the board's attention, that I think we're running close to break even. My concern is next year we could go into the negative. We're that close to it. So I'm recommending, you know, as of July 1, 2020, we raise the sticker fees by $10 to $50, and hopefully, you know, raise the special permit items that we just talked about as well. So that's the end of the presentation. Any questions for?
Can I just add a couple things?
Sure.
Just real quick. I do want to make sure that you recognize all the work that Dave Arsenal put into doing this. We started this, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. We did 2 different projects. One was trying to get a fairly good estimate of all the costs to replace all the equipment that's out there. To get an idea of, we're kind of looking at maybe a minimum retained earnings policy. Where, you know, where do we have to be at a minimum in case, you know, some of these big items start to go? So that was the first thing that he did. And Jim and I haven't gotten together to really talk about putting together a policy yet, but we will in a few months. And the other thing was the special permits. You know, Dave went out and he talked to Spencer, Dudley, Wales, Douglas, and Webster. He gave me all this information. I threw it all in a spreadsheet. I threw Sutton's. I gave it to Matt, and then, you know, Matt's come up with his recommendations for his increases. But again, that was a lot of work that Dave put into it, and you know, he deserves credit for it.
But that's not all the special permits, by the way. Jim only showed you the ones that are going up. There's still, that's not even half of the items that are on our list that we didn't change because we just didn't feel we needed to. It's not like we changed everything that we, you know, that we charge for.
Thank you for that, Tim. I appreciate it. Jesse, we'll start with you.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, excellent presentation. Matt, thank you for the assist. That
You're
was
welcome.
definitely beneficial to the people tuning in at home. Tim, thanks for the save. That was excellent. But more than anything, I would just like to really, really thank Dave Arsenal. Anybody who visits the transfer station on a regular basis knows that Dave is a consummate professional. Yes, you could easily say the transfer station is his baby, but again, he's the face of the town. There's so many users, about 1,100 or so stickers that we sold this past year. So he is there on to the degree the front lines, and he is representing our town, and he does so well with that. Again, he's a professional, he's knowledgeable, he is respectful of any questions that asked to him. On any given Saturday when I make my visits, there are residents coming up, well, what about this, what about this, what about this? He always has answers for them. And he's courteous, and he's respectful. And he also tries educating the public. Because to your point, yeah, so many things, we get in the habit of seeing that little recycle sticker. But just because it has that symbol on there doesn't mean we actually have the means to dispose it. And he interacts with the public. I remember last year we dealt with the issue of the bags. You know, there's classic, it's pellet season. Pellet season's coming. Oh, but there's a number 6 down at the bottom. That should mean it's recyclable. But in fact, it's not. It's actually trash. And you just see the way that Dave interacts with people. I don't want to say trying to sneak it in, but maybe they just don't know. He just deals with them. He's a perfect representative of the town, and we're so blessed to have him down there, that's for sure. And as far as the transfer station goes itself, I am a huge fan. I've been using it since back before we did the pay-go. I think I made the decision to switch from curbside back around 1999, 2000, and at the time, the one-time entry fee, I think, was about $300, which was still cheaper than pay-go. But of the curbside. But then 2006, when the town switched over, my annual cost of my household went down tremendously. Whatever the sticker was at the time, $35 or $30, and $12.50 for a bag of the big bags. I think I was using about $150. So that was a huge savings. So even with this increased costs, the typical, and you show the numbers, the typical resident who utilizes the service is saving $200-300 per household. So it's beneficial. And now having the means to be able to dispose of more and more items that normally would go in the trash, okay, you're gonna have to get the special permits. But again, it's a service, it's cheaper than any other alternative, it's well-run, and I think it's an asset. And ultimately, all of these special permits will go into the retained earnings fees, which means that when the motors on the compactors go, or when the containers themselves burst at the seams, like the trash were just a couple of years ago, these are items that we're not gonna have to go to town meeting and ask for capital requests. We'll have the funds there, so I'll definitely support that program, Tim. I'm definitely in favor, and I have no issue with the increase of the special permit items or the user fees sticker itself, so. Thank you all for the presentation, it was wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all know I have a very special spot in my heart for that transfer station, so. I appreciate and went through very carefully the special permit items, and I think they make perfect sense and frankly probably long overdue, along with the increase in the seasonal permit. So yeah, I support that absolutely as of July 1, correct?
Yes.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to repeat Jesse's, extensive kind of acknowledgement of everybody. It's just a great job right across the board in running the transfer station. What I like about it so much too is that it's funded by the people who are using it, and it's not coming out of the general fund. I think this makes absolute sense, especially kind of taking into consideration, cost and getting rid of the trash and the recyclables. And I think there's also probably one of the things I've been thinking about lately is just the cost going to start to rise because of the whole China not taking our trash. I'm sure it's going to trickle down at some point if it already hasn't started to.
Yeah, it already has, yeah.
So I think that's going to continue to be something we're going to be keeping a close eye on because that could change things quite significantly. And then just also taking in just overall costs and wages and expenses and equipment and all that kind of stuff. So this makes absolute sense. I know that for me, I do curbside right now and it costs me $480 a year. And that doesn't even include if I have special items. So that's just for recyclable and pickup. And you have a lot more options for recycling, which oftentimes I'm wondering, like, how am I going to get rid of this thing, and having to spend time on that. So it's another reason why people should be, including myself, should be considering getting
We
a
do
sticker.
have a lot of customers that have curbside and come to the transfer station just for recycling and yard waste.
Yeah.
Dave estimates probably about 100 of the stickers actually have someone pick up their trash at their house, and they still come. For the $40, they think it's worth it for them.
Yeah, because the recycling, that's what I was
do the
thinking about too,
recycling.
is I don't necessarily have the time to be able to go down to the transfer station for trash every week, but doing it in addition for the special items makes sense to me, because that's half the trouble is getting rid of that. It just sits around my house,
Yeah.
taking up
Yeah.
space.
I know somebody who can get you a permit.
Yeah.
We'll
So-
talk after.
Yeah. So I got to make sure it fits into my budget. No, but I just think it makes absolute sense. So
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with all the previous comments. And just one other thing is, I recently had to empty out a house of a parent that so, not in Sutton, but we had to get a dumpster and so forth. And the fees that were charged for mattresses, I remember were either $30 or $35, regardless of whether it's twin, full, queen, or whatever. So I think these permit fees are really reasonable.
Oh, I agree, yeah, I think that.
So
Great.
I don't have any problem with the increase.
Great. And just a couple of comments. One is, it's so near and dear to your heart, so if there's ever a need for a building committee, I'm calling you.
Still retired.
I really don't have anything to add. I think the concept of the special permits and matching some special costs to some additional types of costs that you incur, so, we can use the transfer station and pay for sort of normal stuff, but then as we have unusual things, then, the consumer is charged based on the fee to, or the cost to dispose of it.
Correct.
Great sense,
And we have things outside of our list, and Dave makes arrangements and estimates
Yep.
based on size and volume and weight and,
Yeah.
what it's gonna cost us to dispose of it.
Yeah, so, so I think to have analyzed that and raise the fees appropriately to match those costs just makes a lot of sense. And, I think the concept that Tim's talking about, where you gauge what a nominal, the right rate for carrying your retained earnings forward, so that we make sure our cost structure is achieving that, is the right way to go. So, simple stuff.
Yeah, it's no different than the free cash policy that we
Yeah.
have for the town side.
Yeah. So, great, and I don't think there's anything we need to do about this tonight.
No, I can bring this up at the budget session season, and we can take a vote at that point to
Yep.
raise the sticker fees if the
Yeah.
board is so inclined.
Very good. Matt, thanks for coming down, appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, we have up next a Waters Farm presentation. Come on up.
Bob Chauvin and Paul Schaefer gonna.
Why don't you guys introduce yourself anyway?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Chauvin. I am the president of Waters Farm Inc. in Sutton. Accompanying tonight is Paul Schaefer. He's one of our board members. As you know, we are a 501c3 organization, which is nonprofit. And our main objective is the protection and restoration of Waters Farm in Sutton. Tonight we're here mainly just to give you an oversight of what is going on at the farm and what we're kind of planning for the future and things. We've had a pretty good year this year. Started out a little rough. Our Easter egg hunt got canceled because of water, but then you're at Waters Farm, so what do you expect? We've had a really good year between all the events that have gone on. We pretty much keep something running every month. Between our tractor pulling, our house tours. We've had other events with other town organizations, Boy Scouts, National Heritage Corridation, the Blackstone Valley Corridation, Channel Heritage Corridation, sorry. But we've had a really good year with a lot of events going on. We had the let's see. Sorry about that. We had our Revolutionary War reencampment come through. That did really well for us. Next year, we're planning a bigger battle. We had about 100 people there this year. They're talking, they want to bring close to 300. And we will have the British and the English, the Americans there next year. We've had plenty of other programs going on. We have an art program which lasts through the whole month of July, which teaches kids different art things and stuff going on. We've had the Blackstone Corridor come through. They did 2 programs, which was a GO program, which walked through the property and gave a presentation. And we just past week, they came in and took photos of the whole house. And they were like little mice running all over, checking out the whole place, which was real good. They're supposed to give us some pictures back so that we're gonna have calendars of Blackstone Corridor and the house and stuff, so it should be a good program for us. Things coming up this year, as you all know, this weekend, beautiful weather, and we're gonna have a great weekend for our fall festival. So make sure you guys are all there, and we have a few more things coming up. I believe we have a townwide dinner or appreciation dinner in November. We have Chain of Lights, which the town does, but we also have breakfast with Santa Claus at the farm. Hopefully this year, our Easter egg hunt will go well and things. But basically, on the overall, the farm is looking really great. We've got good board members. I'd like to say thank you for all the help that they give us, and thank you for all the help that you guys give us, and Jim too. You know, we've also got great help through a lot of volunteers through the school. The kids from the school come down, do their community service. We've got the sheriff's department has come down, and I can't say enough of those guys, the amount of work that those guys put in for us, and doing all the work I really don't want to do anymore. But it's really working out great. The place is looking great. And we have a few more projects. The chimneys should be coming through this year, hopefully. That's gonna make the house look great. We've got some other things going on, the barn and stuff. So everything's in motion. The place is gonna look great, and I hope you all come out and visit us this year. You know, so,
Thank you very much. I'll open it to the board. Jesse?
Bob, that was excellent. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I was been bugging you for the last couple of weeks. You know, you gotta come before us, you gotta come before us.
well, I know.
And,
I've been busy.
I know. You've been preparation for the big weekend.
That's right.
Definitely excited about that. I'm gonna be there both days. I think Paul has recruited me. I'm gonna be joining him one of the days, helping park people.
Whichever day you want.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I know. So whichever day you need me, so I'll be there
Yep.
for you, my friend. But this is just very exciting. The farm is really, one thing that people in town don't realize is that Waters Farm is Sutton's farm.
That's right.
It's owned by the town. Granted, we have, you know, the wonderful volunteers that keep it in operation, but it's really the town farm.
Right.
And you open your doors for, as you said, the Boy Scouts, and I know there's the mushroom forager that goes
Yeah.
through, and
Rachel.
Steve Corville has been running the tractor pulls this year.
Right.
I've gotten to 2 of them, and then you open up the house to the tours and the walks, and
Right.
it's such a beautiful location, and it's an asset.
It
And all of you that are involved in the committee, you just do a wonderful job running it. And I'm just very excited with all the success you had this year.
Mhm.
And I'm looking forward to a gorgeous weekend and another, you know, banner year, hopefully, and look forward to what's gonna come down the road, because it's definitely exciting up at the farm, that's for sure.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wendy?
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, thank you both for being here in your presentation. The reenactment was spectacular. So tripling the size of it, I think, is just going to be fantastic. So I know I personally am really, really looking forward to that. And I'm delighted to see the weather forecast for this weekend and breaking out of our soggy tradition.
Like the first one in
Quite
10
some time.
years,
Yeah, I know.
12
Yeah,
years.
good 10 years.
Hey, come on, knock
It-
on.
Yeah, it's been a while. But just thank you so much for maintaining the property and doing what you do. It's an invaluable service to the community, so thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for coming in and presenting to us tonight. It is such a great asset for the town, and it's used in so many different ways. I know my kids in the summertime take art class there,
Mhm.
and it's just a great setting and a great place for them. And, you know, I too am excited about the reenactment. hearing that it's gonna be tripled in size, that's gonna be pretty amazing. And I used to do reenacting myself, and the larger ones are pretty amazing to be a part of, so to see that in town is really great. As far as, I had a question about the barn, when the plans are of.
We've
kinda-
got permit to put up a building. I'm not gonna say what we can do with the building, but we do have a permit to put the building up as of right now. We're talking with Dave Stevenson. He's on another project in town right now, so he's kinda booked up right now, but we're hoping, probably in the spring or someplace midsummer, we're gonna start with proper funds and stuff, start seeing things go up. So, we're looking at something possibly this year to see something happening, definitely happening at the barn and stuff, so.
Is it gonna be about, I know the barn, it was on, West Millbury Road, is it gonna be the same size, or?
The one on West Millbury, I believe, was 40 by 75. We're only 40 by 60, but some of the barn wasn't,
In good shape.
in good shape. So we've got enough to fix everything that we need by it shrinking down the extra 15 feet or so that we didn't need and stuff. So we should be in good shape with everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's really amazing too, to see a barn get saved and recycled versus just torn down.
Tossed in the trash
Yeah.
and stuff, yeah.
It's heartbreaking every time I see one come down.
We
so.
try to make sure we recycle as much stuff as we can, you know.
So I'm really happy to hear that's what you're doing.
Yeah. They were real happy to see it stay in town too, because they had other offers from some people in Connecticut and stuff that wanted it too, so it was good that it stayed in the town,
Yeah, I've been in that barn, it was pretty amazing.
yeah.
And then I know the roof had fallen in and part of the back portion of it, but
When we tore it down, I was walking along and I have a penny that was tucked on the sill plate when they put it up, and we know the penny matches because the outside boards say Crowback Farm, 1861. It's an 1861 penny that goes along with the barn and stuff. So
Nice.
that'll be in the barn when we put it back up and stuff.
Great.
Pretty cool.
So,
Put a current one up too. That'd be great.
thank you.
thank you very much.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't repeat everything, but thanks for coming in. There's a couple of things that, well, the reenactment actually sounds pretty cool, with
Yeah.
going from 100 to 300. In my memories of Waters Farm Day, I'm kind of looking forward to the weekend being so nice, because my memory, I don't think I've ever gone when I haven't
Been wet?
been wet and come home soggy and muddy and everything else, so this should be great,
Yeah.
so, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming out. You know, one of the services that we try to provide here at the board is an opportunity for you to come and tell the town about what's gone on and what's going on. So we are glad to have you come by every so often and do that. I'm glad Jonathan asked about the barn. Tell us a little bit about the chimney.
The chimneys, we are in the process with Jim to have the chimneys at one point were, during farm days, they used to do cooking in them. It came to a point where I believe either the fire department or the board of health came in and kind of looked up and said, you're gonna burn the house down, so we had to stop doing that. But we've got a gentleman from Maine, Richard Irons, came down, crawled through the house like a mouse and was amazed at everything. Tore some stuff out, found the original fireplaces, which were behind the fireplaces that were there, with all the original stone. That we're hoping to have everything rebuilt to the original fire boxes and everything, so that we can start doing dinners, well, not dinners, but displays in the kitchens again and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Right.
we're really excited to see that happen, where we can redo those reenactments again and stuff like that in the house and stuff.
Great.
So,
Awesome.
so hopefully sometime this year or something, we'll send out the bids and stuff and move forward with that project and stuff, so.
Terrific. Did you have something else?
I got one question.
Go ahead.
I have one question that I thought of after I passed the microphone. How would anyone in the community who's interested in either volunteering their time or making a financial donation get in contact with the farm?
They can come through our website. It's in the process of being rebuilt, and we've got it pretty much stable now. It's over the past, 10, 15 years or whatever that it's been up, has gone through numerous hands. So we've had problems with passwords because board members would leave, they would take those things. Different people played with it and made a mess of it, so, but we've got it straightened out now. So there should be links on the website for doing those things.
What is the website address?
watersfarm.org. And they should be able to contact all of my information should be on there. And if they come up this weekend, I'll be there. They
Yep.
can, Paul will be taking memberships and
Yep,
things at
right
the
at the
main
gate.
gate.
Right at
So
the
if
main gate.
somebody wants to do donations and things, they can either come up to the gate or call me personally or link up on our website. And we should be able to accommodate them, no problem. So,
Perfect.
And we have a Facebook page also.
On Facebook.
We have Facebook.
Excellent. Thank you.
thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for coming in, and we'll see you this weekend.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the honey.
Yes,
You're welcome.
exactly. Thank you. Okay, our last regular agenda item is a 2019 Chain of Lights Committee update, if you would like to come up. I don't know if you want to start, Jim, or?
No, this is just the update meetings on a number of different things, so.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna start with that, you know, I don't know that we've had you guys come before us, at least in recent years, so it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you would just introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Good evening, my name's Janet Gerard, and this is Marnie Newton, and we're here today to update the board on the Chain of Lights event this year. So thank you for inviting us, to give us the opportunity to do that. This year, it's on December 7th, so it's a little bit later in the year than it has in the past, as the calendar tends to do that to us. It's always on the first Saturday in December. This is the second time that this committee has second year we've run this event. We learned a lot last year. This year it's going a little more smoothly because we had a lot of things already in preparation, and so we knew what we were doing, or somewhat know what we're doing. I'm sure there's going to be things that we learn again this year as well. So this year we have about 20 participants. We lost a few, we gained a few. One of the participants that went on the trolley routes for many years is the Sleigh Bell Farm, but it became a real traffic issue for them. So we decided, they actually came to us and said they do not want to be on the trolley route this year, but they will be open. So we'll put them in the brochure so people will still go there and be able to enjoy it, but the trolley is not going to stop there. It really did become a pretty bad traffic situation down in that area. As far as traffic flow as a whole, we are looking at the routes, looking at what makes sense. We may change the routes a little bit because of some new participants that are coming in. The police station is actually asked to participate this year, which will be nice to have people going in and touring the new station. There's a couple of other new participants in town that have joined. But that means we may want to configure the routes. We had 3 routes always in the past. We may make it 4 routes. That will make the route shorter, which would make the time that takes people to go around a route hopefully shorter as well. And we want to also look at bottleneck areas. Last year, the Simonian Center was another big bottleneck area. The parking situation there, a lot of people tended to park down there, and the trolley situation going in and out really did end up with a little bit of traffic issue. So we need to figure out how we can kind of release that pressure from there by maybe having added parking areas scattered throughout the town where trolleys would start from those larger parking areas. That way it would alleviate people going to the ones that they tend to know, which is here at the Congregational Church and at the school, and then they pick up the trolleys there. So those are the things that we're working on in the next week. We need to get this all settled because it takes time to get the brochures mailed and advertised. So we'll be looking maybe for some help also from the chief of police as far as, giving us some ideas about some of the traffic mitigation. One concern that we have, which is a good concern, is that one of our participants has decided to have her theme as Christmas at Hogwarts, which is great. We think that sounds like a lot of fun, but what we didn't realize is that it has a huge following, and she has 45,000 people interested in going, which, kind of set us back a little bit and said, I don't expect 45,000 people to come into Sutton, but it did make us think if we get even a fraction of those people who are interested in coming, and they've been emailing and saying, this sounds like a great event, we want to come in, we want to enjoy the event in the town, it's going to increase traffic even longer. And her place is down in Burnup Road, which is dead end and small, and so we're going to have to think about how to manage traffic if, in fact, that does happen. So that's one of the things I want to talk to the chief about, to see if he has any suggestions. We may have to have a detail down there to manage, some of the traffic, either there or at Central Turnpike, or, so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hopefully, it's great if we have people come in. We want to encourage everybody to use the trolleys, of course, but we have to be prepared just in case we do get a larger than anticipated participant rate. Last year, I wish we had numbers, but I think we would say it was around 2,500 that we can estimate that visited all of the sites. Everyone last year had great participation. Most everyone ran out of food. We had regrouped with all the participants. At the end, they were very pleased with the amount of people that came in and bought and purchased and participated in some of the events there. So we're looking forward to having a similar type of event this year with the same type of attendance level. One area that we can use some help in is for trolley riders. So these are people that volunteer to go on the trolley and basically help that trolley driver navigate through town. They also perform a very critical role where they're in touch with each other with radio, ham radio. Everyone says, why don't you use a cell phone? And we says, well, we live in Sutton. And even though we have a cell phone tower, we still don't get service everywhere the trolleys go. So we use ham radios. We work with an organization out of Worcester, a couple of them, to provide the ham radio operators that go on each of the trolleys. They communicate with each other. And part of the trick we learned was that you have to make sure the trolleys are paced evenly, or you get people just like a traffic jam. You've got one that leaves too close to the other, then all of a sudden things jam up on one side, and then you have a very large gap on the other side. So those trolley drivers or those riders are helping the driver navigate with that and say, okay, you got to hold up, don't go just yet, or you can leave, now because you've got a full trolley and there's plenty of room between you and the trolley ahead. So it's a really critical role for us, but we need volunteers for that. We need people who know the town. Those trolley drivers are not from around here. We had trouble finding trolleys this year. That's not been so in the past. I think because of the date, there's a lot of other events going on, and we had to scrounge to find trolleys this year. We actually have to have school buses, I think maybe 4 school buses to supplement, because we wanted to add more trolleys due to the increase that we're expecting for the event. But they're coming from everywhere. So those trolley drivers are not going to know this town. And so we really do need to have some experienced people. So we're looking for some volunteers, that would want to do this. You don't have to do it all day. If we have enough volunteers, it can do shifts, people riding with that trolley driver. So if anyone is interested, please contact us. We're on Facebook, and there's an email, which, Marnie, what's the email address again? Sutton Chain of Lights.
SuttonChainOfLights@gmail.com.
Yeah. So please contact us. We'll be happy to provide you with some instructions. We have scripts, for the drivers and the riders to go by. And so we're just really looking forward to this event. Hopefully we're gonna have good weather as well. I know last year we had excellent weather, so that certainly helped with the participation that we got from the attendees, but yeah. So any questions that you guys might have at this point?
I'm sure we do. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for coming. This is wonderful. I would say I'm excited about it, but I have to be honest. I am gonna unfortunately have to miss this event.
Again.
I missed it last year, I know. And I would be right there with the trolleys because for 4 years I was the trolley coordinator. I was up at the hub and making sure everything was working. But last year my son was at BVT and they were playing at Gillette.
Yeah.
You know, one in a lifetime chance to go play football there. And this year my daughter's gonna be dancing. So I have to be a dad too. So unfortunately I'm gonna miss it. But I think this is wonderful. I have too heard about, well, we'll give them a little plug, the Enchanted Passage. I heard about the Facebook post and all the interest that was generating. So hopefully a fraction of those people who are interested come into town. I know I was talking to the Ladies Auxiliary down at the Dud. I know they're down there planning wonderful things. I know the Lions are gonna be cooking. I know the Whittiers always do a great job. So my hope is that everything works perfectly. Mother Nature cooperates, gives us a beautiful day, and you're able to have another successful event for the second year in a row.
Yeah, Lions Club will move this year
Yep,
to
they're down at
Al's.
Al's Rubbish.
Yep.
Yep.
We got a larger parking lot for the people to be able to come and enjoy that, and also have tables.
Right. It's close to home, too.
Yeah, you can walk.
Easy.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again.
Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here very, very much. Also, close to my heart. I cannot believe that your committee does this every year. Well, I know you've just been doing the last couple, but it's really overwhelming, the amount of work that goes into it, and you finish up one day and you start again the next day for the next year. So just on behalf of the community, thank you so, so much for all of your time and efforts that you've put into it. And, you know, we appreciate it, and I will be there, and I can't wait. The only heartache for me is I can never get to everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, some years I just drive and don't take the trolleys, but I don't want to be part of the additional traffic either. So I'm just
Trolley
real.
rider. Trolley rider.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
right.
true, yeah.
Yeah, I can't drive my own car, so I might as well jump in the trolley. But yeah, just thank you so, so much, and for reaching out to some of the newer businesses and entities in town that are getting involved too. It's really wonderful and a great opportunity for the people in town. So thank you both so very, very much.
No, you're welcome. It's a labor of love this year.
I know.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you, you know, both Jesse and Wendy both, you know, hit it right on the nail on the head with just their appreciation, and I absolutely agree that this is a great event. My family looks forward to this every year. We have relatives come in, and, you know, it's just a really special thing for our family, and I know that it is for a lot of families around town. And the fact that this has been going on for so long and kind of set the standard for this type of an event is really great, and it's great for the community and brings people into town to see how beautiful this town is. So thank you for all the hard work that you do to plan this every year and keep it going. So
You're welcome.
thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, once again, being in the penultimate speaking position, following people that are pretty eloquent in terms of describing, or in their comments anyways. I won't repeat it all, but just a couple of things. One is that, you know, it's interesting that you're here the same night that the Waters Farm people are, because these are events that are there's a lot of pride in this town, for the town, and these are the type of events that are really kind of woven into the fabric of the town. So it's a really great event. So thanks for all your work with that. And the other comment I had is 45,000 sounds like a pretty big number. So
I hope
we'll
they
see
don't.
we'll see
Much
where
I
that
really
goes.
do hope they all
Um,
don't come. We're being very, we don't expect that, but.
It still sounds like a big number.
It's a very large, but you know, it's amazing, the internet. I'm telling you, you post something out there and, you know, it's amazing how quickly it goes.
Harry Potter fans.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so, but I mean, you know, social media is a wonderful way for us to reach lots of people, and we do use the social media to try to drum up, you know, a lot of excitement and interest, and I think what surprised us is that when we replied to some of those people and told them what the event was, we thought people would say, oh, forget it, I'm not interested, and they went, oh no, that sounds like it's great. It's something that I may want to go to with my family, so, yeah.
146 South shut down.
Yeah, I hope not. I know. We did tell Kim that she may have to just move to the parking lot of the Galaxy in order to accommodate, but I don't think it will be that bad, and I think we'll just have to manage that in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Wendy, you had another question?
Yeah, thanking you both as a committee, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, poor Marnie doesn't even live in Sutton.
I know.
And she's such a big part of the committee, so thank you for that. I know it's.
I know. My
You're
daughter
very-
Lauren lives in Millbury too.
Yeah, you're
and
all so
she's-
busy, so that
but-
you're giving your time is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we get a lot of help from a lot of the folks, on the committee. And this year, the participants actually have been very active, as far as offering some suggestions. But we need more help, and specifically around, around the event, the coordination of the event. And Jesse, how difficult it is.
It really is.
To manage those trolleys and to make sure that everyone's having a good experience. Even though the trolleys may run late, people's attitude last year were very, very good. But I can imagine if the weather isn't very good, and the trolleys are running late, it could be very aggravating.
Yeah, trying to fire up the crowd when it's
Yeah.
like 10 degrees outside.
Yeah,
isn't
exactly.
necessarily
It's
easy to
cold
do.
and you got
Yeah.
people waiting at the trolley lines to get a
Yeah.
little anxious.
One
sometimes.
added feature for us this year, which we're very excited about, the Hanover Theater reached out to us, and they have offered us their carolers.
Wow.
So they will be stationed at the Blackstone National, and which again, we're gonna utilize that as parking area, so to kind of entice people to come and park in there and then take the trolley from there. So they will be performing for us all day, so we're very excited for that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the one thing I want to touch on that virtually everybody else has also touched on is the amount of work that goes into this. I've worked at this event for the last number of years, so I don't get to travel around.
Yeah.
But all the feedback that I heard from last year was that it really went pretty well, and that was your first year doing it. So I have this sense that there's more energy around it, and it feels like greater participation, and that's what the event is about. So it's exciting to hear. But I do want to bring up the one subject from last year, which is just there was some desire to have alcohol served at one particular site, and the topic really felt like it came around to the question of whether we would like to have alcohol served at any or, it can't be all, but at any of the sites that are here. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts about that, whether you think that's a good idea or not.
I mean, I think for last year, it was, well, first of all, there was some misunderstandings and miscommunications, I think, between the vendor and the.
But that part aside.
But that
let's
aside,
assume we get all
so
that
so
right.
as far as a family event and what types of things that we should be offering, it's something that we do consider. It is a family event, and we do want to make sure that everyone is enjoying, them. And today, there's a lot of farm to table, there's a lot of wineries, there's a lot of breweries, there's a lot of those types of things that are in New England, which makes New England, a really nice place to live. So if we have people who wanted to highlight those products that we have, I think it's okay to consider that as far as a highlight of what we offer in a community. Similar to, having honey or produce or other types of things that people offer that they make and they contribute to the community with. So I think we'd consider it, but it has to be very well controlled in order to make sure that, it's not breaking any liquor laws or licenses or that we feel it's appropriately distributed. Now, this year, no one is asked for that. And so, it's pretty much the same things that we've had in the past. I think there are a few food trucks that are coming in, and it's simply because the crowd, people were not able to manage the amount of demand there was for food last year. So a few of them have asked to have food trucks. Believe it or not, with that weekend, they're having trouble even finding food trucks even to come into town. But again, it has to be within the context of what we want to offer in town, that it fits within the style of what we want to showcase, I guess, in
Yeah.
each one of these.
So is it your preference that anybody that would like to have alcohol would come to you first?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, everyone is asked to provide us with what they're going to do.
okay.
That's what this write-up is so far. It's their initial proposal of what they're going to offer. Every year, we do require that they work with the Board of Health and make sure that they get all the required permits that they need for food service. So that's a must. That gets communicated several times during the year, and we'll do that again probably the end of this month, because Cheryl does not like them when they come in last minute, for them to get their permit. So we have to make sure that's all in place, and she checks.
Yep.
So we do need to make sure that all of that is absolutely in line. And what we've done, last year, we invited everybody in as a group to talk about what went on, and this year we had them in twice, I think.
Right.
We had and to talk about what they wanted to do as a whole group.
Okay.
So we were able to kind of share some ideas of what people wanted, get an idea of what they were planning to do this year, wherever they needed maybe some help. We were able to share some of those ideas as well. So
And so just to, I guess, finalize the point, is I think we have 2 board meetings between now and this date, and so if there is alcohol that somebody wants to serve that needs a 1-day license for it,
yeah,
that's really the, sort of the limit of opportunity,
Yeah.
time-wise, so.
yeah. I mean, to our knowledge, no one is asking for that
Yep.
at this point. So
Well,
Right.
let me just interject. I don't know how detailed you want to get, but Blackstone National has a liquor license, as does
Yeah.
Dudley Gendron.
So they're fine, because they
They're
already
fine.
have
Okay.
the ability to
I
serve.
just don't want any misunderstanding.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
they would operate under normal.
under normal
Okay.
Yeah.
circumstance, yeah.
All right.
Well, again, I think, I don't recall having somebody from Channel Lights come and present, so it's really great to have you here, and we appreciate that you come down, and as we've all said, we certainly appreciate all the effort that goes into making this event happen, so,
Well, thank you.
thank you, good luck.
Yep, we look
Hope
forward
you
to
have good
seeing
weather.
everybody,
Okay.
on the trolleys or not.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
both.
Thanks, John.
Okay, town manager's update. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few updates for the board's consideration. We recently went out to bid for highway materials. We do this every 3 years. This time it was 4 years. We got an additional year extension. But we went out to bid for all the treatments to roadways, paving, micro sealing, chip sealing, all these things that I don't really understand, so don't ask me any questions on them. But bottom line is, we've received bids for all the different services. J.H. Lynch and Sons was the winner of the paving contract, which is the big item that really we need to sign a contract with, which we did. We have them on board to do Central Turnpike, and also we have them planned to do additional road work, the Chapter 90 work that we talked about in the recent past, during the same season while they're mobilized in Sutton. So that's good news for the town. The cable show, this was really at the urging or coercing of Pam Nichols and Christine Hicks from the lovely communications / cable department. Jen Hager and I went on camera to discuss the upcoming town meeting warrant. It went well. I think Jen did a nice job explaining some very complex planning issues and zoning issues. Pam and Christine are using the video to the best of what they think will work, taking chunks of the town meeting, focusing on the multi-town mixed commerce district, and doing a nice job, I think, in presenting it. So I think it seems to be working well, and we'd like to do this for the Maytown meeting as well. So we create an annual kind of communications process for both town meetings. The Mid-State Trail Race took place on Sunday, October 13th, from 3:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Mid-State Trail had 3 distances, 100 miles, 50 miles, or 30 miles. All 3 races came through a small part of Sutton, down Town Farm Road to Douglas Road, and then heading out towards Douglas. The Sergeant Joe Fortunato was in charge for the police department, organizing details, etc. It was a relatively small impact on the town. Typically, we give notice of this beforehand. That was our mistake. I just wanted to say I thought the race went fairly well and well organized, and there were no issues with that Mid-State Trail race.
You had the 3:30 a.m. starting time?
No, I didn't do 100 miles. That was a little much for me, so I kind of, had to take a day off.
12:45.
Yeah. To 12:50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fire department open house was held on Tuesday, October 8th. The apparatus were out at the Congregational Church for children. Market 32 donated 21 pizzas and trays of cookies. And for that, we'd like to thank Market 32 for their generous donation. It was it Pizza Hut? No, Papagino's used to donate, but Papagino's obviously is no longer around. But we'd like to thank Market 32 for their generous gift to the town. Tentative schedule for Central Turnpike paving. Milling of the road will begin on October 17th, with crack sealing and level coat pavement to follow. Shoulder work and structure adjustment will occur at the end of the month, and the top coat will follow. All of this is weather dependent. It really, it's been very rainy recently, and they might be behind on some other jobs, so it's coming. It's just a matter of exactly when. Fire department and library Halloween event. The fire department is teaming up with the library this year to hold an event on October 26th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. The library will be sponsoring games, crafts, and snacks. The fire department will have a costume parade and party starting at 2:30 p.m. So that's good. And then, again, the brush chipping at the transfer station this Saturday, October 19th. That's all I have for updates, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jim. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, excellent update as always. Congratulations on the contract with Lynch. I know they've done work in town over the years.
They have.
And they've served the town well, so having a long-term contract in place, predictability, planability, and, they're right down the road, so if there's any issues, we know where to find them.
Exactly.
I would like to congratulate you also to agreeing to be a cable show host. I will say this much. I teach at some of the area colleges, and I teach history and law, but I also teach government. And this, to me, this is education for the community, because I'm finding that over the last 20 years, college students are getting into their freshman year, sophomore year, knowing little of how the U.S. government works and nothing in terms of how town government functions. So by you going forward, you are educating the community on what actually happens at town meeting and what these articles represent. And I'll think back to when we dealt with the marijuana issue. A few years ago, yes was no and no was yes. And it was just, it's confusing because, residents and people are not exposed to this at a young age. So being willing to get up and not only represent the town as you do on a daily basis, but, putting yourself out there on the internet and giving the residents a chance to just sit back and just be able to digest this.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will make town meeting move smoothly. Congratulations to Chief Belcito on the open house. I was in attendance for about an hour or so, and oh my God, the kids had fun. The SFD represented the town very well, and it was just a great event. And luckily, it was a nice night, and the common was flush with activity, so it was just wonderful. Looking forward to Central Turnpike, and brush chipping is always a good thing. And with that, I really have no other comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, thank you so much for the cable show. It was entertaining.
Glad you said. Yeah, that's good.
And Jen did a great job too. I mean,
she
it was
did. Jen
really
did.
super helpful, and I'm glad that you guys are planning on doing it moving forward. It may not have been your first choice, but I think
Yeah.
it was a great choice. The fire department open house, I was only there briefly after going to get my flu shot. So town hall was well utilized that night. But it was great to see all the kiddos look so happy. And thanks again to Market 32. And I am just looking forward to Central Turnpike. I know everybody's been looking forward to it, and pretty soon we'll hear people complaining about driving on it with the milling. But regardless,
Speed, too.
people will
speed,
start speeding. Yeah, we'll hear all about it. But I'm just excited, and I think it's really important for the town and the community and the taxpayers to see it get done.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Yeah, so excited to see that we've hired a contractor, J.H. Lynch, to start doing some of the Chapter 90 work. I saw a couple trucks at the top of Hutchinson Road, I think either the last couple days, yesterday or
Nice.
today or something like that. So I figured we're getting close, so that's exciting to hear. We're actually, it's upon us.
Yep.
I just also really want to thank Pam and Christine for coming up with this idea of the social media and trying to find creative ways to build more transparency into government and helping people understand. If you're not kind of involved in this from day to day, it can be a little bit hard to sometimes understand, but also just having the time and finding as many creative ways to get this in front of people. And, if they still aren't educated at that point, maybe there's other ways we'll find. So it's just kind of find ways. I really like the creativity, and I can't wait to watch it to see. Let's see. I also want to thank Market 32 for donating the 21 pizzas. I think that's just a great community steward for them to be providing that service, for the fire department to hold their event and, serve our children and teaching them about, the equipment and just a great service. We've already talked about Sutton Turnpike. Hopefully we get this going this year, because if we don't, if the weather gets bad, I've heard people are already complaining to me that it's never going to happen, so it's good to see it's on the,
It's like the cell
so,
tower.
yeah.
Come on.
So here it is, we're in October.
It didn't take 10 years.
How can you win at this?
Yeah, but, yep. So, but it's October 17th, so.
It's on the agenda, so therefore it's coming.
Yeah. So, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, what they said.
Sure.
Um,
Mr. Penultimate.
But I did watch the entire cable show.
I'm glad it wasn't just me.
I am glad that there are chunks being shown, because it's a little daunting
It is.
to be able to kind of work your way through the whole thing all at once. But thank you to Pam and Christine for doing that, because I think it's a really important thing that we're doing there, because just the whole communication, there's a lot of misinformation that goes out before town meeting, and I think maybe on some of the housekeeping articles, it's a little it's tough to sit through some of
Yeah.
that. But when it comes to the big issues that we're going to face, I think it's a big deal that we do that, and I think it's great. So thanks for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have we had a 3-year contract in the past for paving?
We have.
Okay. I guess
The last one, I think, went 4 years. We got an extension for a year, but, it was up this year and we went out to bid for all the
Okay.
different services.
Yeah, I guess I had missed that detail. I had assumed we sort of bid out each job, so
Yeah.
this is a good way to do it. I have not yet seen the cable shows, but the reviews sound good, so I'm gonna have to go do that.
Make some popcorn first.
But on the serious side, though, is we really have some, kind of significant issues at this particular town meeting. And so to have people have a venue where they can go learn about it a little bit, I think is important. And I think the idea that we're going to continue doing this, I think will sort of build a little bit of followers so people will know that there's going to be this
Forward
out
to it,
there.
yeah.
And so when we have other issues in the future that people are interested in finding out more about, they'll know that there's a resource out there, so.
Right.
I agree with everybody. I think I completely applaud Pam and Christine for the concept and for you and Jen to
Yeah.
sit down and do that, so. I look forward to seeing Matt Belsino in a Halloween costume. And we'll go from there. So announcements, roundtable, and business correspondence and topics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one. It would have been the Thursday after our last meeting. I was on an Eagle Scout board for Nathan McCracken, who is a member of Troop 243. This is the third Eagle Scout that has come from that troop. I guess they have not had an Eagle Scout in multiple years. So the fact that this year they ended up having 3, they have 4. There's another one coming? All right.
You already had one.
All right, well then I missed, because I know there was the twins, that I was there for that, and then Nathan, there was one previously. Oh, all right. So we got 4. I did happen to mention to the troop a request that Jonathan had made that asked that when they get close to getting their certificates, that they come before us. And the troop leaders seem to be willing to have that happen, so fingers crossed. I know 2 of the individuals are in college now. One of them's a high school senior, so 3 are in college now, correct?
Yes.
So 3 are in college, one of them's a high school senior.
Yes.
So coordinating all 4 of them to have one ceremony is gonna be difficult, but maybe around December, January, to look to see them. So that was it was excellent. And getting back to Nathan, what he ended up doing was trail signs up at the Shaw Farm for the cross country. One of the things that stood out to me was the comment that he made that, you know, if you do cross country in Sutton, before they put the trail markers up, you know, they kind of had like a home field advantage.
Right.
And that the kids knew which way to go, whereas the visiting teams didn't. But I got to give Nathan credit, because he said deep down inside it kind of felt like he was cheating, that it just didn't seem fair. So what motivated him to put these up is just a sense of fair play. And when he made his, I know, we laugh about it, but to me that's what an Eagle Scout's about. You know, that he wants to be an upstanding member of the community, and the fact that he spent his time and his money and did this, you know, excellent. And there was a nice letter from Jim acknowledging the efforts that he put in, so that was great. And the other thing would just be the food pantry list. I was speaking to Diane, and she asked me to remind the community that we're getting close to Thanksgiving. And what happens annually at Thanksgiving is that the food pantry puts together baskets. So what they're looking for is fixins for those baskets. So if you can put in the back of your shopping list, extra cranberry sauce, extra packets of stuffing, bottles of gravy, those French fried onions for green bean casserole, things like that, they would definitely be appreciative. Of course, in addition to the normal needs of laundry detergent, dish soap, toothpaste is running low, they mentioned that, as well as individual served toothbrushes. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wendy?
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Jonathan?
I have nothing either.
And I'm all set too, Mr.
Great.
Chairman.
Well, same for me. So tonight, instead of adjourning, we actually have executive session. Before we get to that, assuming that we vote to go into executive session, then I'd like to just say that we will come out of executive session solely for the purpose of adjourning the meeting. This executive session would be to consider the purchase, exchange, lease or value of real estate. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, which I do, and we need a roll call vote to do that.
Lemanik, aye.
Wendy Mead, aye.
Jonathan Anderson, aye.
Jeff Bannon, aye.
David Hall, aye. So at this point, we've got to clean everybody out, shut off the TV.